Amy Pittman with Pittman Law Office, and I have Tony Kamus here with Beyers Funeral Home. He's a senior funeral director, and he's just going to kind of go over what I feel like a lot of our clients are asking for, since we have so many veterans here, is how does the VA burial benefits work, as well as talking about the local cemetery that we have for veterans. Take it away, Tony.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Thanks for having me today. Well, before I begin on the burial benefits, I want to just touch briefly on a benefit most veterans don't know about, and it's called a non-service connected pension. Almost sounds like an oxymoron, but what this is for veterans who did not retire for the military, you may be eligible to receive a pension benefit. It's income-based. So when you do the application, you have to share what your income sources are, but there is a non-service connected pension that many veterans are entitled and eligible for that they're not receiving. So if you want to know more about that, contact your local Veteran Service Office, and I recommend the county offices. We have one right here in the Villages on Powell Road, and they're excellent, and they can explain that benefit to you. But the purpose today is talk about the burial benefits at the national cemeteries. So eligibility is this. If you served prior to 1978 as an enlisted soldier or enlisted service member, or as a commissioned officer prior to 1981, as long as you have active duty service, not training, but active duty service where you actually served in an active duty station, you're eligible to be buried in any of the national cemeteries throughout our country. And there's a little over 200 of those national cemeteries. So you have the opportunity to choose any of those, or a local one, which is Florida National Cemetery in Bushnell. And after 1978 for service members, or 1981 for commissioned officers, you have to have served at least 2 years active duty in order to be eligible to use the burial benefits. The key to any of this, and I call it the golden ticket for any veterans benefits, is the DD-214. And it's called the Department of Defense 214 form. That's the form that you receive when you discharge from the military that gives a record of everything you did while you're in the military, where you entered the service, where you were discharged from the service, and it gives the character of service, which is very important on the discharge. So if you don't have a DD-214, I'm going to share a form here with you. This form is the standard form 180. It's called Request Pertaining to Military Records. It looks like this. You can get this online, and you can request a copy of your discharge and your other records from the military, from the National Archives. They're the ones that manage these records. And I would highly recommend that you go ahead and do that, because without the DD-214, it just slows down the process of making a veteran or their spouse or their eligible dependent able to be placed in a national cemetery. So a very important document. Make sure if you don't have a discharge that you get that. Now, there's a special consideration or eligibility for National Guard and reservists. The VA, unfortunately, doesn't view you as veterans for burial benefits unless you were deployed by order of the President of the United States. Now, if you're deployed, then you become eligible. Or if you retire from the National Guards or from the reserves, then you're also eligible. But if you just served for a period of time, less than 20 years, didn't retire, unfortunately, unless you were deployed by order of the President of the United States, the VA does not give you that benefit. So I don't agree with that, but those are the rules. So burial benefits in the National Cemetery. I'm first going to start with full casketed burial. That benefit includes a grave space for the veteran's spouse, and a dependent child. And that dependent child was a child that was dependent on their family for support and care prior to the age of 18, continuing into adulthood. And the benefits are a headstone made out of granite at Florida National, a grave liner, not a vault, but a grave liner keeps the weight of the earth off of the casket, opening and closing of the grave, perpetual care maintenance, and use of a committal shelter in the National Cemetery for the committal service. Now, at Florida National, they are not burying side by side anymore for full body caskets. They are one on top of the other. So whoever passes first goes into the bottom of the liner, and then the second burial goes into the top of the liner. Now, one of the things that some veterans are concerned about is, do they have to go first for their spouse to be there? The answer is no. The veteran and their spouse are eligible, provided that the veteran has a good, honorable discharge and has served the requirements as I stated earlier. Cremation, very popular. More people are going cremation today than full body burial. You have the same option as full body burial casket to go in ground at any of the national cemeteries. You still receive the upright monument, you get the space, but it is side by side. It is not one on top of the other because there's no outer burial container. So any urn is acceptable. An urn is not even required at the national cemeteries for placement, either in ground or in a columbarium, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment. So the thing that veterans like about the in-ground is you get the same headstone that the full-body casket burials get, which contains more information about your service and full dates of birth and death. Veterans like the additional information. Probably the only thing that they don't like is the non-veteran spouse goes on the back of the headstone, the veteran goes on the front of the headstone, with one exception. Most veterans are not aware of this, but we do have couples, husbands and wives, that are married, and both of them are veterans in their own right. In those cases, if they opt to, they have the ability to do what's called a side-by-side, which means that the veteran spouse that dies first can be placed in one grave. A reservation can be made for the second grave beside the first spouse for that second veteran spouse. And it's kind of standard procedure in the national cemeteries that they do this now. But if you want to be in the same gravesite, that's also available. You just have to write a letter at the time of the death of the first spouse indicating that you have opted out of the side-by-side, and that's put in your file at the National Cemetery. Cremation in the columbarium. People refer this as the wall. It is the above-ground structure that has small compartments called niches. It can contain up to 3 urns to accommodate a dependent child for that family. The niche plate engraving is included. It has less information because of the space limitation, but same perpetual care and maintenance, use of the committal shelter, all the other benefits that are attributed to the in-ground burial are included with the columbarium. Arlington, we are getting more and more requests for veterans to be placed in Arlington. So the requirements are pretty much the same as for a Veterans Administration National Cemetery, but Arlington is a different type of cemetery. It is managed by the U.S. Army, and so their requirements are a little bit different. So for the commissioned officers that have retired from the military, they're eligible to be placed full body at Arlington. Currently, it's taking up to 6 months for us to get a schedule at Arlington for full body. If a non-commissioned officer or commissioned officer want to do cremation and have their ashes placed there, that also is available. And the process on that is similar to the eligibility for full body, except the actual placement schedule is now out to 16 months for placement of cremated remains. It's just because of the demand and the space limitation at Arlington. So that is the part of Arlington. Now, some veterans do not want to be placed in a national cemetery. Maybe you have family burial plots in a cemetery somewhere in the country, and you want to be placed with your other family members. So there are monetary benefits available to the surviving spouse or the children to help offset some of the costs. It's not paid directly to the funeral home. Again, a DD 214 is required, and those monetary benefits can be applied for through one of the veteran service offices. Also, they will supply a headstone or a marker for the grave as well. Installation of that headstone or marker is not included in this benefit, but they will do that. Also, if the veteran is under the care of the VA at the time of death and in a VA facility, the VA will reimburse the transportation expense for the veteran's remains to go from the place of death to the funeral home and then ultimately to the cemetery. Again, a benefit that has to be applied through the Veterans Service Office. So those are some benefits there if you don't use the National Cemetery. Active duty deaths are an exception, and that's really not the purpose of our topic today. But I just bring this up because we've handled several active duty deaths in the last few years, and the branch of service that service member was serving in, they do pick up all the cost for placing that veteran at a cemetery, funeral costs included, whether it be the National Cemetery, Arlington, or a private or municipal cemetery. So there's some myths out there that I want to talk about. One is about the benefits from the VA for burial benefits. I brought it up a little bit earlier because Amy had asked me about this. Sometimes couples think that the veteran has to pass first in order for the non-veteran spouse to be placed. That is not true. As long as the veteran is eligible, their spouse, their dependent child, if one exists, are eligible to be placed prior to the veteran being placed. So veterans, take that stress off you. You don't have to die first to get your other family members in there. Another myth is many veterans think that the military is going to take care of their funeral and burial arrangements and costs. Not true. When you were active duty, that was true. When you retired or discharged, whatever the case may be, the military has no more responsibility to take care of your funeral and burial costs. That is the responsibility of the family. And as we share many times with families that come in that have that thought, it's the family's responsibility to pay for the cost to get the veteran's remains to the National Cemetery of their choice. Once the veteran's remains or dependent child or spouse, once those remains get to the National Cemetery, everything at the National Cemetery is provided at no cost. And just a mention of cost, if you were to try to duplicate, whether it be columbarium cremation or in-ground burial for full body or for cremated remains, you're probably looking at least $7,000 to $8,000 minimum or more, depending on the part of the country you're in, to have that same style, same quality, same level of service from a private cemetery or municipal or community cemetery that you get from the National Cemetery. So it is a significant benefit, and we try to encourage the families that we serve that the deceased or the surviving spouse is a veteran, we encourage them to use our National Cemetery. Another myth is that the cemetery arranges for military honors, and that is not true. Military honors are not automatic. Like any other benefit through the system, it has to be applied for and requested. So we at Beyers Funeral Homes, we're experts of doing this. We probably average almost one funeral a day going to the National Cemetery, so we're very familiar with the process. And so military honors from the branches of service have to be requested. Typically, those honors consist of a 2 to 3 person honor team that will come and fold the flag and play taps. If the veteran happens to be a retiree of that branch of service, they may provide full military honors, which includes the rifle salute. For veterans that don't have that opportunity, we have some veterans groups in the area that we call upon for a nominal gratuity. They will come and do the rifle salute as well. And then the flag. Some people are not sure where the flag comes from. The flag actually comes from the VA through the post office. And we do a flag application for every veteran that we serve. We have to, again, have the DD-214. And then we obtain the flag from the post office, and we make sure that flag is provided for the services either at the National Cemetery or at the church. And one other thing is maybe some of you would not be going to the National Cemetery for anything. Maybe families decided, or you've decided you want your ashes placed somewhere or scattered. Then military honors can be rendered either at the funeral home or the place where the service is held. So that is an option for military honors as well. So again, there is a form, which is the form I showed you earlier for requesting the military documents to discharge. And if you don't have one, I recommend that you do that. Another place that you may find this, other than going to the National Archives. Veterans were told when they discharged, when they went home, to record their discharge in the county that they went home to. So you may have a copy of your discharge with the clerk of court in the county that you discharged to. You can call them, they'll do a record search and see if they can discover that. So we've found sometimes that has occurred when the veterans have done that. The other thing is, if you want to make sure and you have your discharge, you want to make sure that you are eligible to be placed in National Cemetery, just to have that peace of mind and have another document showing that you are eligible. There's a VA Form 40-10007 called Application for Pre-Need Determination of Eligibility for Burial in a VA National Cemetery. Form looks like this. It's a one-page form. You fill it out, you attach a copy of your discharge, you send it to the St. Louis scheduling office, and then they will send you a letter stating that you are eligible if your discharge allows it to be placed in National Cemetery. Again, it's just another tool that gives you peace of mind. It's not required at the time of death to produce this, but the discharge, again, is the golden ticket. But this just gives you peace of mind knowing that you are eligible to be placed at the National Cemetery. So Amy, I think that's what I wanted to cover, unless you've got some things that you want to ask.
I just have a question, because we have a lot of people who have multiple spouses. So if I'm the veteran and my spouse dies first, he's there, but what if I get married again? Are they only allowing one spouse of the veteran to be buried?
Well, no. If at the time that the non-veteran spouse passed, that spouse was married to the veteran, that non-veteran spouse is still eligible to be placed at the National Cemetery. Now, it's up to the veteran to decide which spouse he wants placed with him when he goes. I had a gentleman come in one time that was a veteran. He had 3 wives placed at the National Cemetery. He's getting married for the 4th time. And he wanted to make arrangements for her to make sure that she would be taken care of. I said, sir, go ahead and get married first, and we'll talk about this afterwards. But no, you can have multiple spouses at the National Cemetery, but then the veteran has to decide which spouse he wants to be placed by at that time.
Okay. Well, you know, if you're one of my clients, we tell you not to get married again. So hopefully that won't be an issue. I know that was a lot of information. I'm going to try to get those forms, and I'll try to post them when we post the video, so you might be able to get the link to the form directly. And I also will put all of Tony's information on the YouTube channel as well. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. We really are just trying to provide these videos as education to all of our clients. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.